Hello and good evening. Welcome to today's edition of Politics 101. It's a midweek, Wednesday, uh, quiet Wednesday evening in Guyana. And welcome to all of you who are joining us, whether you're joining us from in Guyana or you're joining us from outside of Guyana, wider Caribbean, in North America, Europe, and those of you who are joining us from South America, particularly those of you who are in French Guyana and Suriname. Please share the link. Please share the link. We expect Elder Hamilton Green to join us this evening. Welcome to all of you. And I want to say much thanks to you who continue to be loyal followers of this program and other programs hosted by myself and others. Those of you who join Mark Benshop and Rickford Burke and Kidaki Amsterdam, Shara Duncan, and all the other programs. Those of you who join Brother Paul Slow on Wednesdays, he had a program earlier today. I want to say thanks to all of you for your support and your loyalty. We cannot do these programs without you. And so we want to let you know how grateful we are. A good evening. We come on here, of course, today. Another sad news. Two children perished today in another fire at Belmont, Jamaica. Belmont, Jamaica. 9-year-old and a 3-year-old trapped in a house, padlocked, from what we are hearing from the initial reports. The mother, from initial reports, we don't know how reliable these reports are. So we don't want to spread anything I'm reading from the Marara Waves. The mother apparently left to go to collect the cash grants, and the children were left at home. And they perish in a fire. 9-year-old and 3-year-old perish in a fire. Padlock. From initial reports, the neighbors tried to get into the house, but they couldn't get in on time because the house was padlocked. Yes, Elder Green is backstage and is ready for us. Elder Hamilton Green, former Prime Minister, Government Minister, PNC, longtime PNC member, is joining us tonight for our interview. But we want to give our condolences to that family, that mother, losing 2 young children to fire. Too many fires. We are a country with wooden homes and wooden buildings, and so we are more susceptible to fire than other countries. But I hope the government is waking up and recognize too many fires. There was one at Plaisance the other day. No one perished, but in this one, two children, 9 and 3 years. We have to begin to pay more attention to the safety of our people We have the means by which to do so, but we have to have the will to do so. In an over politicized society, we tend to focus on those things that are politically, to use a term, politically sexy. You know, you can go and boast that you did this and you did that, and you satisfy your constituency that you did this and you did that. How about if we count the number of people who perish by fire or the number of fires under the government? I'm not saying that the government is responsible for these fires, but I'm saying these things happen under the government. The government will take credit for all the good things that happen. They must also take responsibility for all the not so good things, the bad things that happen. I'm not saying the government is responsible for fires. Fires happen under any government. But for a government that goes around the place and boasts how wonderful it is and how much money it gets to buy votes, why does it not spend more money on safety? On safety. Good evening to all of you. Good evening to you, Anne-Marie, Ingrid, Yuri Westmus. Good evening to Princess Marcus, Conrad August, who is a regular. Good evening to all of you. Our interview tonight is with Hamilton Green, and we'll be talking about a range of issues. And again, thank you all for joining us. Let me bring in Hammy.
Hello, David. I'm here.
Hi, Brother Hammy. Good evening.
Good evening, my brother.
And how are you doing?
Oh, batting, hoping that I can play some part to create some change. As my friend Denny would say, an attitudinal metamorphosis among the government at the moment. Because
Yes.
as we're going, we're sliding into the abyss of corruption, recolonization, and imperious control of our resources, which God gave us. And if we don't do something about it, the grace and goodness can be transformed into curse. Basically, that is the overriding condition of our society today.
And as you pointed out in a letter in today's newspaper, and you have been bold enough to point out that a big consequence of all of this is the way in which African Guyanese have been targeted for a certain kind of underdevelopment, a certain kind of shame, a certain kind of ridicule from the government. And today you made mention in your letter directed at Minister Walron, who represented the government at the United Nations. And you know, it was yesterday. Henry Jeffrey was on, and both of us shook our heads because they sent a young woman on an errand, and she obviously knew nothing about what she was talking, you know. And there you are in today's newspaper echoing the same sentiments. I mean, she's a young black woman and she's a sister, and she may be on the other side of the political fence, but when a government sends you to make a fool of yourself, all of us feel a sense of shame. And you put it mildly in your letter today, but it was clear that she is not aware of the history of race in Guyana. But I'll allow you to expand on what you wrote in that letter today.
Well, David, the problem is we have persons like the purported minister and others who have not attempted to understand that certain things don't change. The leopard never changes its spots. And in the heartland of the People's Progressive Party is this proclivity, this belief to control. And in this case, is to use the demographics that the Indo-Guyanese are the majority, and they're very, very good and decent Indo-Guyanese. But the party as an institution is using it to drive a further wedge for their own personal benefits. And as I have said earlier on this and other programs, David, what a sensible government should be doing now is to sit down around the proverbial round table with the opposition, whether you think they're credible or not. They represent the majority of people in this country, including the Afro-Guyanese, and sit down and face the Goliaths who are here to exploit our resources and to really recolonize us and leave us at the end of the day perhaps poorer than we were before. There's nothing more dastardly than a country that is rich, open inverted commas, but the average person is poor. I said to a prominent Afro Guyanese minister some time ago that all they needed to do is follow the footsteps of our visionary Burnham. Whether you liked him or not is not material. And with this massive wealth they now have control of, to A, ensure that education is free from kindergarten to university, ensure that there are credible health services. 2 days ago, I had a problem with my knees, and my orthopedic surgeon recommended a certain drug, $40,000. I turned to my staff and said to them, how many persons can afford to buy this drug and to pay the cost for medical attention and place it on my knee? And my driver said, well, you just have to bear the pain. We don't have to. We have to stand up, erect like men, and say, we don't want this nonsense anymore. The problem, David, when some of us speak up, we're accused of being treasonable, fostering uprising. But if our ancestors didn't rise up, slavery may still be well in place. So I'm not proposing rising up in the traditional sense. I'm proposing to our people, Indo and Afro-Guyanese, because this cost of living and difficulties we have, and this false narrative that is being put out to United Nations by some Afro-Guyanese ministers is inappropriate and untrue. I had a group with me this afternoon, and I reminded them that in any country, there is what you call the inner cabinet. The inner cabinet will not consist of persons like Honorable Miss Walrun and my friend the Bishop and others. The inner cabinet is the president, the minister responsible for oil, the former president, and the minister of finance. They control the purse strings. And what is happening now is they are cleverly doling out sums of money, food packages, putting up banners all over the place to persuade our people that they should support them. And consistent with what I said, the old communist Stalinist philosophy, the prize is the capital. They want the capital badly, and they're using every stratagem at their disposal to fool citizens. And our task, my dear David, is to tell our people they must not be deceived. The leopard has not changed its spots.
The leopard does not change his spots. Hamilton Green here this evening on Politics 101. Welcome to all of you. Those of you who are joining us from inside of Guyana, as I am. It's a quiet, normal Wednesday night in Guyana. I am, of course, on the East Coast. Hamilton Green is in Georgetown. Guyana belongs to all of us, too. And we have to ensure that we continue to witness for a country which must live up to its creed. And the creed of this country did not begin in 1966. It began a long, 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 long time ago, because out of the ashes of slavery and indentureship and other forms of servitude came the, the will of the Guyanese people to create a nation of different peoples who came at different times, perhaps came in contentious circumstances. But over time, we have come to tenant this place. And we have to democratize this space, not in the European sense of democracy, not a democracy that is confined just to elections. Elections are very, very important, but it's a democracy about people, about equitable distribution of common resources. This is not the time when we didn't have enough resources and we said, well, we have to prioritize this and we have to prioritize that. Now there are things that we couldn't do and we can do. And it's an utter shame to see people whose foreparents slave for this country and help us to survive to see today when God has blessed us with some wealth, and to see those people being treated and herded around and put on jerseys on them and kicking them around and getting them to take pictures and behaving and winding up and carrying on and so on. It is an affront to the history of this country, an affront to those of us of darker skin. And so when we speak up, we are saying that we have to make right with Black people today so that we can make right with all of Guyana tomorrow. Because of the nature of the PPP, they see the Black community as an obstacle to total control. And that is so. They have always done that. And they are trying to enslave us with a smile. The skull is behind. They're trying to enslave us with a smile, throwing little pieces of bones at us and holding us in such a way that the bones will choke us. Because at the end of the day, what they're about, it's dominance, dominance, dominance. Hami, you have been in central government, you have been in local government, and so you have experience at both levels. When a party that controls the central government control the purse, as you put it just now, do as they did, starve the city. You became mayor in 1994. The PPP came to power in 1992. And you have first-hand experiences of how the central government used its constitutional control of the purse to starve the city of Georgetown and other cities across this country. And now, after decades of ruining and destroying the cities, you now come to the residents who you have reduced to second-class citizens in their own country, and then tell them to give you control, give you direct control of the city. You had indirect control and you starve them. And now you're asking them for direct control. What are you expecting to do with them? Not kill them? Hamilton Green, over to you.
It is a sad and sorry situation. And what you said, David, is so instructive. It is encumbered with an umbrella of massive propaganda. I remember Joseph Goebbels of Hitler's era and Joseph McCarthy of the American era. They both believed if you repeat something with a sweet tone and a sweet voice, People soon begin to believe that what's a pussycat is a tiger or vice versa. You have the president who comes across as a nice chap, but at the end of the day, they program the process by well paid propagandists. Unfortunately, some of these propaganda consultants are part of that group which Desmond Hoyt was referred to as a certain mafia. I wouldn't call the ethnic description. And that is so sad because I believe that deep down they have a disdain for people with melanin and woolly hair. And so they have come together to, as you said, give us bones from the master's table. And in essence, we enslaved our minds, shackle us, kill us, as we see happening all over the place. And there's no respect for law and order. Insofar as the city is concerned, one of those who now act as an advisor once said to me, Hammy, how could you remain in office when all these things are happening by the PP? I said to that person, I never carry a flag of surrender. I carry a green flag which says forward always. That person is now a big advisor to the government. But briefly, I tried my best, David, to save this city. When I became mayor, Dr. Jagan approached me and said, you know, Hammy, we got on very well at a personal level. You have the first year. Give the PNC the second year and give us the third year in the mayor's chair. Well, my wisdom told me that what they plan to do is throw the massive resources in that third year PPP mayor so the person will look good in time for the next elections. I saw through it and said to him, why not give the PNC some control, or the GG at the time, of some vital ministries if you want this whole concept of sharing to be a reality? That was the end of the conversation. As you know, some set of persons bought into this strategy that planned this scheme, and that's how Jordan became mayor the second year. Well, they fell out because neither side delivered, and so I became mayor in the third year and have the dubious honor of being the longest serving mayor. It has been a time of stress and strain. Everything I did to improve the city was frustrated because the narrative is the mayor must look bad. And I gave some examples in that letter. When Dr. James Rose, who was de facto mayor as chairman of the IMC, was about to leave office in preparation for the elections of 1994, he made a public statement in spite of the largesse given by the PP government to the council under his stewardship, that the city could not provide an effective service even if it collected all of the available rates and taxes, and that we needed a new source of revenue. I proposed a lottery, which I thought was harmless. People like to gamble. But when I took the proposal, which we couldn't do on our own, to the acting president, he said they could not agree to a lottery because the religious community, in his own words, will be up in arms. The delegation included the late Philomena Sahoy Shuri from the PP and Robert Edward Williams. The rest is history. Within a few months, the lottery was up and running, and the city got not a cent from the proceeds, not to mention nobody knows where that money goes. In addition, Professor Akbar Khan, one of the renowned and respected tongue planners internationally, came to Ghana, interviewed the public servants, the police, the security people, civil society, and proposed a number of measures to improve the conditions of Georgetown. Try as I did, I couldn't get the Minister of Local Government to subscribe to any of those proposals. It included separating the bus park. I don't want to be too tedious.
No, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
In addition, I looked at the problems we were having within the ministries and the engineering department and proposed a card of 30 wardens, one for each ward. I consulted a group of PP members to help me identify the wardens. I had them trained in the rules of public health, what was right and what was wrong. As soon as I got the program going, Mr. picked them off one by one and offered them better jobs elsewhere. So they dismantled and broke up the warden corps, which was intended for each warden to take up area of, say, our Boystown, Leicester, Kingston, go around, and I told them, you don't want cars, you're going on bicycles to go house to house, to speak to people, go into schools, tell them what is to be done and what is not to be done, so as to uplift the profile of Georgetown. That didn't fly, they frustrated it. And I can give other instances. At the end of the day, the minister identified the chief executive officer, the town clerk. And the last straw was when they appointed a certain lady who was not qualified for the job as town clerk. When the government changed in 2015, we moved the motion to have her removed. She would move, so we moved her, but she moved back to the town clerk's office, locked the place up. I went to the police station and spoke to them. They sent an officer, and that was before 2015 elections,
Yeah.
gave the telephone to the police officer. I don't know who she spoke to, it had to be a big one. And he left sheepishly. So I give that as an example of the trauma that the government has descended on the city. And I hope that people understand they must not succumb to what I hear is happening in Lane Avenue and some other places. They're given envelopes with, I think, as much as $200,000 on the condition you give them your ID card.
ID card, yes.
I mean, the thing is vulgar. It is, I can't find words to describe it. And I hope through people like you, David, the international community who assailed us on this issue of democracy, understand that is the opposite of a democracy. So use these massive funds they have to bribe, cajole people to stay away from the polls so they can get their prize of Georgetown and, of course, Linden and Yamsjam. And I'm speaking to a public meeting tomorrow. And I hope our people will have a sense of pride, David, that they have a mirror in their homes to see who they are And who are the people throwing filthy lucre at them to buy them? I told some people I spoke to they must feel insulted when the PP cabal, led by the three names I called, come to them to insult them. I hope, David, our people have a sense of decency and have respect for what the ancestors suffered, and to remind them that for some reason, as Professor Ali once said, a lot of those people who came out of the African continent into the Caribbean and America have not made optimal use of their suffering. They have not turned it into sacred doctrine. And I hope that the things we say on this program and the message you have been passing on for so many years resonates and get down to particularly our young people, that they must know they must honor our noble ancestors who struggled for emancipation, and the least they can do in their honor as their bones in the Atlantic are rattling for justice is not to succumb to the blandishments of the People's Progressive Party, who have no interest in certain people.
Ami, I'm so glad to hear you speak tonight on this issue of race. I said last night on my program, and this morning I was on another program, and I said that in the early years of the PNC government under Burnham, Black people were looked after as Black people. There were instances where Black people looked after as citizens and voters, but there were housing programs and other programs that were directed at Black people. And we can look across the landscape of Guyana, see where housing schemes are. And that it was not done in a way to discriminate against Indians, because Indians were in the commercial sector, they were in rice, they were in sugar, and they were reaping benefits. But one got the sense that Black people were lifted up as Black people. And that since Burnham died, and this is me, David Hines, I think the PNC has not looked after Black people as Black people. And I remark that Black people have given to the PNC more than they've given to any other organization in Guyana. And when I listen to some of the younger PNC members, they can't finish a sentence. They can't say a sentence that is directly directed at African people and speak to them as African people. There seems to be a fear, a hesitancy. And so what we find is that the Black community is being raided, and the Black Party is not able to prevent that. Hammy, there've always been people who cross the floor, as we used to call it, cross the floor. But in terms of going into the communities and raiding, there was an understanding that you didn't do that you didn't go into each other communities and raid their people. You got people to cross the floor, and the PNC and Burnham were good at that, But what we see now is a kind of raiding, and the PNC is not able to stop it. Now, this is a party that you helped to build. If you agree with me, well, let me just leave it as it. Just comment on what I just said.
David, you're absolutely right. The problem resides that a lot of our young politicians at all levels, on both sides of the political divide, have not learned, digested our history. And when Afro-Guyanese talk about their entitlement, they're accused of being racist. This country's history is clear. It is the Africans who without bulldozers and Hymax dug, and Rodney's work is excellent, dug miles of trenches, canals in this country, civilized the entire coastal belt. The Indians who came worked hard. I have no problem with that. I've always acknowledged their industry and their ability to make deferred sacrifices and choices. But it was the African who civilized the entire coastal belt, and successive governments have not given credit to that effort. And when the Indians came here, they were welcomed by the Africans who by then had assimilated and taken in British or Western culture, whatever you want, and they were the teachers, the policemen. And today you have the absurdity, the ridiculous condition where a government is trying to erode, dismantle our history, particularly insofar as the security forces are concerned. They're talking about parity, they're talking about equity and balance. But that talking about balance when you distribute lands, license, and other things. The Africans, as I said in the letter, if you go to any parade where they honor the war dead, if there are 100 people marching, if you find one or two Indians, you're lucky. The 98 are Africans. Your name is Hines. My name is Green. You can't find those names in Africa. So we, for better or for worse, took in the Anglo-Saxon British culture with our names and education and shared that freely with the Indians who came on their reports, where, like the commissions, complained that the Indians were shying away from schools. If the Indian African teachers speak to people like Ryan, he has publicly thanked an African who taught him. That's how he became a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And so a government must not ignore
Yeah.
the pleas and the plight of the African. This is not racism. This is attempting to correct the evils of history. And this is the message we have to send to those tyrants who now want to control all of the oil resources, all of the gold resources. Look, we must explain to people this. The people who lost their lives in the rapids and the waterfalls to find the gold, where are they today? That's why I had a quarrel with Desmond Hoyt once, when he was not allowing some of our people to work some land, saying it was dangerous. It's all over the world, mining is dangerous. And he gave it to certain other people. One of the things he and I quarreled about. And today, who are the people benefiting from the pork knocking in this country?
Yes. Yes.
We need to remind our young people, some of them who spend their time looking at these iPads and these telephones. And your program also, David, must speak to some of our young parents who have no idea what being a parent is. We try with some kids in this area. We have to fight the parents down to help those children. My wife spends hours trying to bring a young man who was at 10%. She brought him up to 60, 70% in a couple of months. And the parents seem not to appreciate that. You know? I've had lurid stories told about this last cash grant, and the government don't know what to do, you know.
Yes,
The lines at KFC are long and not at the bookstores.
not at the bookstores.
Not
And
to people like David Hines so they can acquire knowledge.
yeah,
Lord Bacon once said, knowledge is power. And
yeah,
these people understand our weaknesses. And they have a few in the cabinet who, as I said, I don't think they have mirrors at home. They don't know who they are.
yeah.
But the struggle must continue.
Must continue. And Hamilton, I please talk to those younger members of the PNC and let them understand that it is not a crime to fight what is before you today so that you don't have to fight it tomorrow. Nobody wants the PNC or any political party to be a racial party. All our parties should advocate multiracialism, but you cannot see your supporters being slaughtered, being hoarded, and you are going to them and telling them about how other people are suffering. You are standing before crowds that are 99% Africans and telling them about how Indians are suffering. You know, I find that just bad politics. And people who are in those crowds then complain to me, people
Bad,
like me.
bad is a word, David.
It's been, and but all is not lost. I mean, I was in Buxton over the weekend, and I was at the gas station sitting out with my friends there, gaffing and so on. And on two occasions, two young parents, they were in their 20s, they brought their children to me. One girl was in fourth form, she was about 14, and the other one was about 12, and their parents brought them. And to my discomfort, because you're a country boy, you don't really take yourself seriously. But both these parents came and they asked for an excuse, and they said, Dr. Hines, I bring my daughter to meet you personally because we insist in our house that she must look at Politics 101 every night. And now she reminds her parents that they must look every night at the program. And I teared up when those two children, when I shook their hands, and one of them asked me. She said she is in the technical section of her school, and she be writing or subjects in the technical area. And she asked me when I'm coming back next if I can bring some books for her. So all is not lost. And as I speak here, I am tearing up. But here is a 14-year-old and a 13-year-old who are doing what they ought to be doing. But their parents who are encouraging them. And so you're right about our young parents. They have to encourage their children. They have to encourage our children to get information about their identity as early as possible so they do not go out into that hostile world to be eaten up by people. All they want is to get Black people out of the way so that they can hold on to that wealth. They can hold on to that wealth. And I
Yeah.
asked the 14-year-old, what is your favorite program? And she said, Mr. Hines, the program when you tell Mr. Kit Nascimento that you're speaking to him as a little Black boy, man to man. That was her favorite program, and I felt hope for the future because that 14-year-old girl understood what that conversation with me and Nascimento was about, and so I hope more parents encourage their children to really do what our parents encouraged us to do when we were their age, and that is to seek knowledge. But and I know, Hammy, you have been doing some sessions at your home for the community. Tell us a little bit more about that those history sessions.
Well, as you know, I am almost blind now. So
Yeah.
my wife is doing it. She's got a little boy and some others. She's trying to work with them almost every night. I don't know if she does it. She has the patience. And as I said earlier, they, they come to foil as some of the parents. And I've tried to analyze it, David. What has happened? The 23 years between 92 and 2015 is what literally destroyed
Yes.
the culture base of our people, and we did not realize it. And during that period, the PNC didn't have the kind of astute leadership
Yeah.
and supporters because one man can't do it to deal with it, and we have to overcome that problem. When I speak to the folks in Charleston tomorrow, where I grew up, I will say to them, we no longer have the time to criticize as we should our leadership and leader. And I've told the story, I think, on your program, but I've mentioned it 1,000 times. I grew up in a yard in Charleston. We had 5 dogs, always fighting among themselves. But the day that a strange dog came to the gate, a postman left the gate ajar once. They turned on him, and in fact, in one instance, they killed him. And then they could have afforded the luxury of fighting among themselves.
Yeah.
This is my message to our people, particularly the Afro-Guyanese. We're under threat. And those people out there in Europe and the United States who enslaved us are aware of this condition. We have to get together, forget who's a good leader, who's not a good leader, and understand we've got to work together. And at the same time, recognize we're not racist, because every time black people speak to the rights, every time we discuss ancestral piety, we're accused of being racist.
Racist. Yeah.
Nobody else is accused of that.
Right. Right.
The Jews made a fetish of their suffering. We didn't. And every time we seek to vindicate our suffering, we're accused by the same architects of our destruction of all sorts of evil things. And they have, in this government, a fantastic set of puppeteers who are manipulating the strings for the puppets that you and I can see.
Yes.
And you notice, even though I think the papers didn't publish it, I attended that 70th anniversary of the parliament.
Yes. Tell us about that.
And they honored everyone else. In fact, when it came to near the end, they had some medal for Ashton Chase. Nothing for UC Quayano. So I got up from my seat and said, what about UC Quayano? I don't know who heard me because I was in the third row behind the ambassadors. But the speaker came to me after he didn't know I was there. He didn't recognize my presence. But that is not my worry. So I called the young man who was master ceremonies. He's very embarrassed. He said he was told to read the script handed to him. He couldn't tell who gave him the script. Oscar Clark was not invited. It is my belief that when Oscar was carrying the duties of speaker and Jagan threw the books to the floor, I was present. He called upon him to apologize. Said he wanted to apologize in chamber. He said, no, you have to apologize in the open. So Oscar was not invited to the function.
Yes.
And I asked him to explain how it is. There were 6 ministers in that first magnificent entry to Parliament. Forbes Burnham, Cherry Jagan, Lachman Singh, Jain Rai Singh, Ashton Chase, Sidney King, who's our UC Guyana. The last two are alive in the 90s. So how could you honor? And Guyana, thank God, is quite lucid. How could you not honor him? I have not been able to get an answer. But what is happening there, David? It's a not so subtle attempt to rewrite our history,
Yes.
disgrace our people, so that our children and their children have lost a pride in being who they are.
Exactly.
It's a serious matter. And those of us who know better must fight it. And every day I see young people, including some young PNC people, and some PP topics come to talk to me too, and I tell them straight.
Mm-hmm.
It is unacceptable. Dr. Ali and Barrett Jagdo come across as being very nice guys. They have that personality. They have highly paid PR persons to write their speeches. But at the end of the day, the underpinnings of their belief and philosophy is absolute control and dominance of the children of the man-emitted Africans. That is my view, and I will like somebody to change those views. So my name is Walrun, as you notice. I gave her examples. The most recent Bath settlement. You have a hospital at Fort Wellington, you have space. Why go to Bath? You build the Bobby Street Bridge. The proposal was either at Stanleytown or Rotterdam on the east bank, to Ithaca on the west bank. Both would have benefited Afro community, but no, you carried at double the cost to further north, to Palmyra, and the reasons are not obscured.
That's right.
I met with the organizers for World Cup cricket, agreed to surrender part of the Merriman's Mall so that we can use GFC, GCC. We measured it adequate for World Cup cricket. But this is Georgetown, where the PP don't have control. And I tell you, they will never get control so long as I live.
Hamilton Green there. They will never get control so long as I live.
Exactly.
Yeah. Quite the kind of bold statement that that we have to hear coming from the opposition side. Hamilton, there's a time when you have a certain kind of message, and there's a time when you are being beaten, you have to fight back, and you have to have fighting messages. My title for tonight's program is Fighting with Hamilton Green. Because there's a time when you have to reach across and hug, and there's a time when people are fighting you, that you have to fight back. Because if African Guyanese are reduced to permanent second-class citizens, there will be no stable Guyana. So when we talk about a stable Guyana and a prosperous Guyana, it has to be for all our people. And Hami, you have been around long enough to have been used by Indians. I have been around long enough to have been used by Indians. When we fought against you all, Indians were using us too, right? When I was critical of the Granger government, Indians were using me too. So it's not about time that some black people use me. And I think some of our younger leaders have to understand this. If the government changes and a PNC-led government come to power, the Indians who hate me and you today will be coming to us and say, Hami, David, why you all not speaking out about what's going on? we will become their friends again. That is the nature of politics. Somebody said, Mr. Burnham referred to it as the logic of power. When he went to a certain Indian community and they were suggesting to him that, Chief, the Indians love you. Look how they're rallying around you. And he turned to the person and said, those Indians understand the logic of power. And we have to be frank about it. All of us have been used by Indians when it benefited them. Nowadays, they have power, so they don't have need for you and me. It is African people who have need for us. And I am respectfully submitting, Hamilton Green, that we have to submit ourselves to be used by Black people today. That is the logic of power, as Mr. Burnham would put it. Hammy, some of the people who cross over and gone over and hanging their mouth for the leftovers were deep in the bosom of the PNC. And I know that you are a religious man. And you're not going to be totally unkind to them. But a word for those people who, in a sense, have embarrassed themselves and embarrassed the tradition, the African tradition. But anyhow, over to you.
David, my first reaction is that I lean on the wisdom of that 3rd century philosopher. I think his name was Tulara from Sparta.
Sparta, yes.
Speak not ill of the dead.
There you go.
And those persons, including a last one who said he was on the way to the poorhouse, they are minions. I feel sorry for them. And I hope that one day they'll wake up. But as I said, speak not ill of the dead. And the more you call the name, the more you give them currency.
The subtlety of Hamilton Green there, you remind me of Dick Gregory. They asked him once, he was on a forum, and they asked him about George Bush. And George Bush, the younger George Bush, was president. And he said, that man, George Bush, if he were alive, he would have been a sick man. So as Hamilton Green says, speak no ill of the dead. I mean, what a moment to end on. And I hope the audience get what you just said. Speak no ill of the dead. I mean, speaking about the turncoats. And he says, speak no ill of the dead. Hamilton Green.
But let me say this before you close.
Yes.
Anytime you go into a place like Buxton, even though my vision is gone, invite me to talk to some of the young people, the young parents in particular. If you convince 4 parents,
yes,
we've made a start.
Certainly.
We must ensure control of certain areas so that this impasse will come to an end. You know what? These fellas really believe that they can purchase us with a few dollars and a few boxes of food. We must tell our people, our ancestors say to us, we're worth much more than that. We want equity. We want this thing about one gather being a reality. We don't want, and I say it to some of those ministers, I don't have to call the names, they don't control the gravy. And they must understand that they're pawns. They're the puppets, and the puppeteers are behind them operating. But a Luther continue. The struggle
continues. Hammy, thanks very much for a short notice coming on.
David.
Yes, coming on tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And where are you speaking tomorrow night and Friday night?
At some place in Charles, I think it is Ketley and Broad Street.
Broad Street. And then Friday night you're where?
Some by what they call this boy's square. Oh Lord, he was a party activist. His son was in the police force. By the East Rhineville police station.
By the
East.
East Raquel police station.
Mm.
Along there. Oh, by the is it Turning Point or somewhere there?
Square.
Right, right,
Get
right, right. Well, thank you, Ami, for coming on, and good luck in the rest of the campaign.
It's always a pleasure listening to you.
Thank you. And Hamilton Green there, speak no ill of the dead. I want to thank you all so much for staying up with me. And I keep saying to you all, now is the time we have to scream for Black power and Black empowerment. There's nothing racist about it. Black people are under attack. They're under attack. And we must defend them, not with half statements, but with everything we get. We talk about Black power today so that tomorrow we can talk about people's power. Black people are under attack. The shaming, the buying us for a little box of food for $40,000. I am telling you all, my people, I'm telling you all, they're attacking the honor of a group. You know, you can take away a little piece of board from somebody, you can take away, rob a man of couple $1,000 and so on. But when you rob him of his dignity, when you rob her of her dignity, you're striking at our humanity. Black people, you all wake up and fight back. Those who gone, gone, as Ami said, speak no ill of the dead. But the majority of us, the vast majority of us who have not gone, we have got to fight as Black people because we are assaulted as Black people. And we have to tell those PNC members, the younger ones especially, don't come to us and tell us about other people's problems. Come to us and tell us about how you solve our problems. Don't go to Buxton and Golden Grove and Albistown and tell them how Indian people suffering. They know that. But they come out to hear you tell them how you intend to stop their suffering. And I hope those PNC leaders are listening. Politics is not a beauty contest. Certainly not when your people are under attack. You all are PNC leaders because of Black people. And if the party is going to be saved in this local government election, it's Black people who are going to save you all embarrassment on Monday. It's Black people. And to the Indian brothers and sisters on the opposition side, understand your role. Your role is to bring Indians over to our side, to go into the Indian communities and put an alternative program to them. Your role is not to look to see who Black person you all can condemn. Your role is not to condemn Ogunsi and Rwanda. Your role is to condemn the evil PPP and to bring Indians over. Not bring them over as hordes and as second-class citizens, but bring them over in a dignified way. I have a good relationship with PNC leaders. I have very good relationship with them. But I'm tired of y'all going out there and not understanding the moment. And the moment is that your supporters are under attack. I could come here and say, I'm a WPA, and you all abandoning Black people, and I going to take the support over. I am not saying that because I have no interest in that. I have an interest in all of us, regardless of party, fighting to regain the dignity of Black people. This is not about I taking support from you or you taking support from me. This is about the people who look like us, who are being attacked in the most vile way. And we are not going to them and looking them in their eyes and saying, I am of you and you are of me. And we got to fight this fight today. So tomorrow we don't have to fight this fight. Tomorrow we don't have to fight this fight. I don't want to spend my entire life fighting to save Black people from being raided. I want to fight to save them from being raided today so that I can fight for Guyana from being raided tomorrow, because Guyana is also being raided. The PPP is raiding Black people. And the international forces, the oil companies, are raiding Guyana. And some people are fighting the raiding of Guyana and are ignoring the raiding of Black people at home. We can get the best oil contract. We can get the best deal from Exxon if Black people continue to get a bad deal from the PPP. We're still not doing business. I want a good deal from Exxon. And I want a better deal from the government of Guyana for poor Black children. I want a good deal from Exxon. Listen to me carefully, people. I want a good deal from Exxon. I also want a good deal for Black people and poor people. I would have walked with Mr. Dagger if Mr. Dagger was walking for a good deal for Guyana from Exxon and a good deal for Black people, because he Black like me. But he forget that Black people not getting a good deal. I love the brother Dagger, I love what he did. Walk for a good deal for Exxon, but walk for a better deal for Black people and poor people, Mr. Dagger. The next time you walk, broaden your walk. I love you for what you did. But you can't fight for a good deal from Exxon and not fighting for a good deal from this government for Black people and poor people. Indian people, they have their representatives who are fighting for a good deal from the government. They're still getting crumbs, the poor Indian people. But let's face facts. Let's face facts. Because the government wants to hold on to their support, they're going to give them some more crumbs than they give to Black people. Let's be frank about that. So I'm saying to our leaders, I'm saying to those young political leaders, especially from the PNC, stop the nonsense that you all go out there and be talking every time. And you all Black people, when they come to you all must shout them down when they come to you all with that message. And let them understand that they're there because of you all. Those 200,000 votes, check the vast majority of them. Those 200,000 votes that have them in parliament, check where 90% of them come from. It's an insult to go to West Ramville or East Ramville, look at a crowd of Black faces and telling them how other races are punishing. Good night. Tomorrow night, I think I have my friend Lincoln Lewis and some others going to drop by to keep my company. But as I said a few weeks ago, on this issue of Black people dignity, I'm prepared to stand alone. I'm prepared to stand alone. Even if parties don't stand with me, I'm prepared to stand alone. Because as I walk through this country and I watch those faces, those old women and old men, As the woman in Buxton at the funeral yesterday, who squeezed my hand and whispered in my ears and said, I watch you grow up. I'm getting old now. I'm going to die soon. Am I going to get a chance to vote for you? I know what she was saying. She was saying thanks for standing up for her. She was saying thanks for standing up for her. On this issue of saving Black people from being treated in the most undignified way, I'm prepared to stand alone. I'm prepared to stand alone. And I'm not looking over my shoulder. As I've said, I've been used by Indians before. So I don't have any problems now being used by Black people. And I know Indians gonna vex with me, but I prepare to deal with that because Black people were vexed with me when Indians were using me. That is the nature of politics. So Indians can cuss me till the cows come home. When the government changes, you all gonna stop cussing me and hug me up again. Because although you all know my politics, I vote for a government, I support a government. But if it does wrong, I will say to it, it does wrong. And you all can use me again. But this time, one gets wiser. Wisdom is the ultimate teacher. Some say wisdom cometh, but wisdom has a way of teaching. Wisdom has a way of teaching. I love you all. I love you all. I love you all, and it's a love that is not superficial. Every cow, as they say in the communities, every cow cry, and I want to quote them correctly. Every cow cry for your own calf, not calf, calf. Every cow cry for your own calf. Wisdom. If you can't cry for your own calf, you're not going to be able to cry for somebody else's calf. For those on the PPP side, Black people, and I know there's some Black people who are genuine PPP, and I don't beat them. I know some of them been in the PPP, my friend like Shirley Edwards and them been in the PPP since in their hard times. So my fire is not against them. My fire is against these Black people who feel that they can smart the PPP. I'm going to take them thing and don't vote for them. When you take the thing, they take your picture. And even if you don't vote for them, they already shame you. But I said, it's not just the ordinary people, it's the leaders also. And our Black leaders have to toughen up. You all hear what Hamilton Green said? They're not going to take Georgetown while he's alive. And he's 80-something. When last year a PNC person speak like that? When last year a PNC person speak like that? When Ogun say, watch them, and spoke like a Black man. Some Black people were running over each other to condemn him, not realizing that he was using the words of his mouth to release the pressure on Black people. As I tell you all, the PPP come to Buxton, my village, to hold their meeting. They hold it at the roadside. They didn't come to the line side where everybody does hold meeting. They went there on a previous campaign and they remembered what happened. deterrence. At least they show us in Buxton some respect. We didn't tell them don't go, don't go to the line top. They might have gone to the line top and nothing would have happened. But they made a judgment that they got some real people in Buxton. And the possibility, if we take our eyes and pass them and go to their Mecca to spout our nonsense, there is a possibility. So they keep the meeting near the road. And when they finish the meeting, they pack the traps and travel. That is what they should do in all Black communities. But they're not going to do it until they feel that if they do otherwise, we have to be the deterrence. Politics is a serious thing. I don't tell in Black people if in your conscience you believe that the PPP represents something that you like. I'm not saying don't join them. People must be free to join any political party. I'm saying do not allow them to come into our communities and treat us like slaves. That's a different matter. Belgrave and Shirley Edwards and Clinton Collymore and Luncheon and them, they weren't raided. They joined the PPP. I think they joined the PPP out of conscience. I think so. And so I'm not talking about that kind of PPP Black person. I'm talking about some of these young ones, like that lady that they sent, at that young lady that they sent to make herself a fool at the United Nations. But we pass laws, not knowing the United Nations says that laws have been passed. We have done well with laws. But those laws have not led to the end of anti-Black racism. And she goes there uninformed and make herself a jackass. As a Black man, I feel embarrassed for her. But that is what happens when you allow yourself to be bought and then they send you to do jankila work. And you make all of us feel shame. And I know they're listening. I want you all to tell her I love her. But there is something about what she did that makes her not the best example of what it is to be African. Thank you all very much. Dory, good night. I'm very, very jealous of this color. And I have to be because of what we went through. I should not have been here. Everything said that I should not have been here tonight talking as a Black person, as a free Black person. When that 14-year-old child said, our favorite program is when I tell Kit Nascimento, I'm speaking to you as a little Black boy from Buxton, man to man. I don't come from riches, I have no riches. But thanks to the sacrifices of ordinary Black people, I read some books and I get some education. And they're able to look at the Kit Nascimentos of this world in their eyes and said, you may not see me as your social equal. But Guyana has given me an opportunity to talk back to you. When Kit Nascimento said that Ogunse, Rickford Burke, and David Hines are dangerous men, he wasn't just merely using words. He could have said, I disagreed with them. I disagree with Hines. I disagree with Ogunse. I disagree with Burke. Of course, I don't have a problem. But he didn't say he disagreed with me. He said we are dangerous men. The slave was always a dangerous man to the slave master. And the slave master says, when we free them, they would not be able to exist in a state of freedom because they're dangerous. And so when Kit Nascimento called me a dangerous man, I know where he's coming from. I'm saying that in today's Guyana, I have something that allows me to stand before you in a way that I couldn't do. Kit Nascimento uncle said, oppose, expose, and depose. But when David Hines and Ogunsi and Rick Fabert said depose, we shouldn't say it. His uncle could say it, but we couldn't say it. We can't say it because we black. And that's why I'm jealous of this color, because I know the assault that it goes through. When they get behind their closed doors, David Hines is too loud. What they mean is not that I have a strong voice. They mean that I don't measure up to their class. But I don't give one damn. My people have made the sacrifice so that today I can be loud as I want to be. And I will be loud as I want to be. And I'm calling on all my black leaders, my fellow black leaders, stand up as black people. Lift up black people. As that lady said, I'm getting old and I'm going to die just now. Let our people die with some dignity. Let them not die with the sight of us putting on red jerseys and making ourselves jackasses. Let them die with the sight of black people. As Claude McKay say, with our backs to the wall, dying, but fighting back. If we must die, let it not be like hogs, hunted and penned in an inglorious spot, while round us bark the mad and hungry dogs. If we must die, then let us nobly die. Let our people die, knowing that they're leaving a world that is not going to crush their contributions. Black people, fight back. Fight back. Fight back. See you.